There are seeds you can plant once and never have to buy again. So why have most of them disappeared? If you have ever grown something yourself, it concerns you. This affects us all. It is our responsibility to save these seeds. For you, for me, for our children, and for future generations. The goal is to preserve biodiversity and ensure the survival of more nutrient-rich, hardier varieties. To keep these valuable seeds in the public domain, free of charge. Find out now what schemes Monsanto and company are carrying out and how you can protect yourself. This story begins in my mom's garden many years ago, when I was still a little girl. Year after year, she did something that I never noticed. Something that I only realized as an adult woman. Namely, when I started gardening myself. I understood something that makes me proud to this day. My mom left me a legacy, just like many other women and men in other families as well. For over 10,000 years, farmers did one simple thing that made civilization possible. They saved their best seeds. They planted, they harvested, and they planted again. No contracts, no permission, no dependency, no cost. The seeds belonged to all people. And then, something changed, and almost nobody noticed it happening. Not slowly, not over centuries, but within a single generation. Today, only a handful of corporations control a huge share of global seed production, more than ever before in history. And here is what most people never ask. How did this happen? When and how were we deprived of our rights to basic plant care? And in some parts of the world, what farmers have always done, saving seeds, sharing, replanting, can suddenly become a legal problem. And here is the sad part. At the same time that this business system was spreading, the plants that could make it unnecessary began to disappear. Not all at once, not by a decision, but slowly enough that most people never noticed that it was happening. In this video, we will look at 7 seeds, some forgotten, some restricted, some quietly set aside, all of which have one thing in common. They make you independent, and that's exactly the problem. The system shift. Before we get into the plants, you need one piece of context. In the 1980s, the largest seed companies controlled less than 15% of the global market. Today, over 60%. And this is where it starts to matter. And here's what most people miss. The same companies that sell the seeds also sell the chemicals those seeds are designed to work with. That creates a loop. You buy the seed, you buy the input, you buy again next season. And over time, that loop becomes normal. So normal that most people never question it. Ask yourself now, what happens to plants that don't need this loop? The ones you plant once and harvest for years? Like my mother. Not just once or twice, but season after season, without restarting the cycle. That's where things get interesting. 1. The unapproved seeds. Let's start with something that isn't a single plant, but an entire category. Heirloom seeds. In many regions, seeds can only be sold if they're officially registered. Sounds reasonable, until you look closer. Registration costs thousands per variety. Ongoing fees, strict uniformity requirements. For large corporations, easy. For small breeders to preserve and register hundreds of traditional varieties, almost impossible. And this is where these seeds start to disappear. So what happens? Those seeds don't disappear completely. Ask yourself now, what happens to plants that don't need this loop? The ones you plant once and harvest for years? Like my mother. They are saved in seed libraries, private exchanges, membership systems, still alive, but pushed to the edges. In many cases, this seed survived through communities rather than markets, passed hand to hand instead of shelf to shelf. And this is how entire food traditions disappear. Not with a ban, but with silence. And that raises a bigger question. When did seeds become something that needs approval to exist? 2. Skirret, the sweet root we forgot. Let us now talk about an example plant that almost no one knows today. Skirret. For centuries, this was a major food in Europe, especially before sugar became widely available. Naturally sweet, highly productive, perennial. And here's the part that doesn't make sense. You plant it once and harvest it every year. No replanting, no chemical inputs, no dependency. And in some cases, yields even improved over time as the plant established deeper roots and stronger growth patterns. So why did it disappear? Not because it failed, because it didn't fit into their business system. It was too efficient, too self-sustaining. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. This kind of plants should not have disappeared. So instead of being banned, they were simply forgotten. And forgotten systems can disappear just as effectively as banned ones. 3. When seeds become a legal issue. Now this is where it gets serious. In some parts of the world, saving seeds has actually been restricted. Take Colombia as an example. A law was introduced that required farmers to use certified seeds and restricted the use of non-certified ones. For many farmers, that meant something unthinkable. Saving your own seeds could become illegal. And yes, this actually happened. And enforcement wasn't theoretical. Entire harvests were destroyed. Not lost, not spoiled, destroyed. Seeds seized. Farmers fined. Crops erased from existence. Farmers watched their crops being destroyed in front of them. Farmers protested because something they had done for generations was suddenly no longer allowed. Not because it didn't work, but because it couldn't be controlled. And once control becomes the priority, tradition often becomes a problem. You have to know, seed monopolies are extremely lucrative for Scorzonera, the winter crop that disappeared. Back to the garden, another example. Scorzonera, a root vegetable that once played a critical role in European diets, especially in winter, because it grows when most other crops are gone. Perennial, cold hardy, easy to propagate. You plant it once, it keeps producing. Even in colder months, when other crops fail, it continues quietly beneath the surface. And yet today, almost invisible. And this is where it becomes invisible. Not because it lacks value, but because it doesn't need to be repurchased. It didn't fail. It was simply left behind. And crops that don't require replacement often fade out of systems built on repetition. 5. The real shift. You can't replant everything. This is the turning point, because the biggest change isn't about one plant. It's about a principle: replanting seeds. And this is where farmers lost control. In modern agriculture, many seeds are patented. That means you can buy them, you can plant them, but you cannot legally replant them. There have been real court cases over this. Farmers saving seeds from their own harvest, something as old as agriculture itself, suddenly treated as a violation. This is where saving seeds stopped being normal and started becoming illegal. And this is the part nobody talks about. And this is where the system becomes clear. The value is no longer just in the plant. It's in controlling the plant and earn money. And as soon as big business enters in the system as a form of control, property replaces tradition and changes not only agriculture, but also the relationship between people and food itself. 6. Good King Henry, the plant that never needed replanting. Now back to something simple. Good King Henry, once a staple in medieval Europe. Today, almost unknown. Here's why it mattered. Perennial edible leaves, shoots, buds returns every year. You plant it once, and it feeds you again and again. In many cases, it would self-seed, expanding naturally without any additional effort from the grower. So why did it disappear? Because it doesn't create repeat purchases. No annual seed cycle, no dependency, no system needed, no cycle, just food. And in a system built on repetition, that simplicity becomes easy to overlook. 7. Where it all began. Mesopotamia. Let's go back to the beginning. Mesopotamia, the birthplace of agriculture. For thousands of years, farmers saved and adapted their own seeds, locally, season after season, until modern systems introduced something new: intellectual property, licensing controlled distribution. And slowly, over time, not instantly, but steadily, the system shifted. From saving to buying, from adapting to replacing. And this is where everything reversed. And with that, something deeper began to disappear. Generational knowledge. Knowledge not written in books, but passed through practice, season after season. That which my mom has passed on to me as knowledge, and in a basket full of seeds. The bigger picture now step back. This isn't about 7 plants. It's about 2 different systems. System 1, save, replant. Build independence. System 2, buy, replace, maintain dependency. And they can't both dominate, because one makes the other unnecessary. And they were never meant to exist at the same time. And once you recognize that tension, it becomes difficult to ignore how differently these systems shape the future of food. That's why these seeds matter. Not because they're rare, not because they're illegal, but because they represent something different. A system that doesn't reset every year, but builds over time. One that rewards patience instead of repetition, and resilience instead of constant input. So the real question isn't, what should you grow? It's, what system do you want to be part of? The one that brings you back every season? Or the one that eventually sets you free? Because once you stop depending on new seeds every year, you don't just change your garden, you change your relationship to food. And once that changes, there's no going back.